Hi, it's Dave here from Book of Wing Chun. This episode I'm going to carry on from my last episode about what is the meaning of Siu Nim Tau to talk about the really cool, mysterious thing called Nim Lik. Now, Nim Lik is usually translated into English as mind force, and we call it Wing Chun mind force or mind force. Now, just to get things straight, I'm not talking about some kind of spooky power from a distance, throwing chi balls at people or taking over their mind or reading their mind. I'm not talking about that sort of thing. I'm talking about a force generated by a special type of mind. So, I'll put my glasses on for a sec to quote to you from the Book of Wing Chun, Volume 1, by my Sigung, Shong. And see, I did a lot of highlighting when I read this the first time. It just blew my mind. Sigung says, the purpose of tiny idea, which is in this translation is how they translate Siu Nim Tau. So the purpose of Siu Nim Tau to discover the existence of mind force can then become possible to attain. Sigung saying straight out, the purpose of Siu Nim Tau is to discover the existence of mind force. Now, that's incredible. I mean, he goes on to say some really interesting things here. He says, idea power, mind force, is acquired through practicing the Siu Nim Tau form set. To put it alternatively, the body is filled up with qi. It is agreeable to those who know Qigong. The translator says, a Chinese traditional skill of cultivating, roughly speaking, internal energy, which is referred to as qi. It's agreeable to those who know that the magnitude of mind force, Nim Lik, is dependent on the amount of and the concentration in training. Unceasing training unfolds its existence, so you've got to do it a lot before you start to feel it. And persistent practice further harnesses its power. When practicing the full form set of Siu Nim Tau, the flow of idea, which means the flow of the Nim state of mind, should remain uninterrupted, always kept continuous. Okay, so that's sort of heavy stuff, and it can be a bit of a surprise to people who don't know these ideas to hear that Wing Chun is about, especially Siu Nim Tau, is about discovering this thing called mind force. For some people it seems sort of absurd because they haven't really heard about it before. I believe it because my Sigung practiced Wing Chun starting in 1950, was the third student of Master Yip Man, who's world renowned as the Wing Chun master. And this man, Chu Shong continued to train and teach people for over 60 years and didn't really promote himself. He just worked on Wing Chun. And I believe him. And I've experienced some of this Nim Lik. I want you to find Nim Lik yourself. So, interesting thing, Nim Lik is something we're all born with. This is something Sigung told my friend Stephen Lum. Sigung said, everyone has it when they're born, this mind force. They just have to refine how to use it. So babies can use it, and I also believe animals have full Nim Lik, and that's why babies and animals are super strong. And everyone knows that animals are a lot stronger than humans, but scientists can't work out why, because they're looking structurally, they're looking, they must have different muscles or twitch speed or different bones, but they've actually come up with sort of a blank. Well, monkeys, particularly, say gorillas, who are, the apes that are closest to us don't seem to have different bodies, but why are they, many times stronger than man? Well, once you discover this concept of Nim Lik and feel a bit of it, you realise it's a mind state. They're in a different mind state to the human. The human mind is this one at the front. Get technical about it, but it's essentially conscious mind. This mind force is something that, we've all heard of people, somebody picking a car off a baby, for instance, somebody in an accident. In the extremity of, care for their loved one, they don't think at all, they just go, move the thing. And that's a real thing. In Wing Chun, what we aim to do is develop that ability to be able to consciously do it without having to have an emergency happen in front of us. Now, I'm not saying that I'm real good at it. I'm not saying that it's not an incredible quest to get this working or to be anything like what Sigung could do. However, I also don't think it's that absurdly difficult or out of reach. It's just a matter of understanding what it really is. There's a number of possibilities of what this Nim Lik is and where it comes from. As I've talked about in my previous video about Siu Nim Tau, Sigung taught us that practicing that form and engaging that type of mind for Nim Tau is the precursor to Nim Lik. And in Western science, as I said, we could think of it as unconscious mind, or the subconscious mind, the mind that's not the talking mind, the mathematical mind, the rational mind even. It's more a dreamy mind that's connected to everything. And as an artist, I've delved into that mind more than most because that's what artists do. We don't want to just be rational and telling a story A to Z. We try to get into sort of a dream state while we're awake and make artwork, at least modern artists for the last 100 years or so, make works that really delve into the other side of the mind that people don't always acknowledge or be aware of. Now, Susanna Ho, who taught me back in the late 90s, greatly influenced my thinking, said to me, when I first started, she said, don't think about punching as punching. Think of it like a baby reaching for an apple. Now, a baby reaching for an apple is a very natural thing. A baby doesn't think, I baby, am reaching for apple. A baby just reaches for an apple. So the baby hasn't developed this conscious mind thing. That conscious mind seems to be something we pass on. If you grew up with the wolves like Mowgli or with the apes like Tarzan, fictional characters, sure, but if you grew up with animals, you wouldn't develop a human mind. You'd be an animal. And so we've got to sort of learn to access that animal mind without, ending up sitting on the floor doing animal things to ourselves. Another way of thinking of it is the visual mind. Artists see in visions, it's like a 3D way of thinking, where you see in the imagination. And Bruce Lee, who I greatly admire, and have admired for 40 years, he actually translated Siu Nim Tau as meaning little imagination. When I first read that, that was in a posthumously published book called The Tao of Kung Fu. John Little compiled that with the approval of the Bruce Lee Foundation and put it together, but Bruce had intended to publish it back in the 60s, and it was at a time when he was still very much into Wing Chun and very much talking about what his teachers had told him, Yip Man in particular. And he called Siu Nim Tau little imagination. So imagination is another good way to think of the Nim Tau, and you imagine that the other person is not there or has no force, and that your own body's empty and light. And I'll get further into this about what I think this is about, but that imagination is, I think, one of the keys to finding this mind force, is to virtualize the other, virtualize yourself. If this seems really weird to you, well, maybe it is weird, but it's not that weird. Anybody who plays computer games knows how to live in a virtual world. Gamers more than my generation control virtual things and virtual avatars of themselves, and that's pretty much what I think Wing Chun's doing. We become sort of like an avatar in our own game. We make this real world into a game by completely emptying Fong Sung, and then we just use our power. Another thing that you could think of this Nim Lik as being is the force of an idea, or the force of a highly focused mind. These are two things Sika Jim said. Used to talk about determination force, being sort of like intent, but being really determined, focusing the mind, going, I will do it, a feeling. And Sigung Chu talked about Nim Lik being the power of a highly focused mind. So not a mind that thinks it through consciously, but a mind that's just in a state of determination. People often call that intent. I'm going to do it, that's it. But you don't have to say it. It's like a baby reaches for an apple with determination. If you ever seen a baby, when they're hungry or want something, they don't really take no for an answer. They want it, and they cry if they don't get it. But it's sort of like a baby's type determination. Last thing I'll leave you with is saying that I believe was created by my friend Tony Saylor. He was the first person who said it to me, that's for sure. He talked about the idea that it's the state and not the shape that matters in Wing Chun. And what he was talking about there is that as much as the forms are obviously protecting us, guarding our center line, teaching our body how to move in fighting ways, and in ways that are optimally set up to bounce off others' aggressive force and move the body and all the things that the forms teach us. But the most important thing is the state of mind. It's a state. It's a mind state, and he calls it the Siu Nim Tau state. So, really that comes down to the don't think, feel state, the little mind of the body state. There's a definite feeling in the back of the head. If you want to get into brains and things like that. Sigung did talk about how he could feel that something engaged in the back of his head, sort of in the middle back or lower back. A feeling that one gets when you're totally relaxed and you just move with intention. It feels different to the normal day-to-day thinking. And practicing on the dummy, my teacher Richard Antonini, who was teaching me the dummy, said to me, no, you're wobbling. I was going like this, and then I just relaxed, and the state of mind that I needed just sort of happened, and I did it right. I said, yep, that's it. And then I thought, I know this state of mind. Why do I always felt something about this, but I recognised the state of mind, and it suddenly clicked. It's the same feeling I get when I'm painting a painting and I'm lost in the painting and I'm in another world, another state of mind. So there you go. That's a bit about Nim Lik. I'm going to be talking a lot more about ways that you can get yourself into that state, ways of mind and body to connect the mind and body place to experiment with your own mind in this, and I'm hoping that for those who have ears to hear, what I'm telling you will be of use. So thanks for listening. I much appreciate it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends about me. Tell them about Dai Wei Kwun. Check out daiweikwun.com. And on Facebook, I've got a Dai Wei Kwun page. I've also got a cool page called Wing Chun Mind Force, where I've elaborated for about 2 years on ideas that I had, all to do with Nim Lik, Wing Chun Mind Force. Thank you. See ya.